Hello friends, and welcome on in to another behind the build video. Today we're going to be checking out our awesome build of Stan Lee, which we actually built live on Twitch a couple months ago for the release of Endgame. If you guys didn't know, I live stream on Twitch 5 times a week, bringing these crazy builds to life while hanging out with you guys, chatting about life, enjoying the fun of LEGO. So make sure you come by and check that on out. But let's go ahead and dive in on our behind the build today. We got a couple questions from some friends on Instagram that we're going to answer so you guys can understand a little bit better about how this build all came together. So let's dive in and take a look. So our first question comes from our friend T. Miranda, how you built the face of him. So they want to know how we built the face of Stan Lee. That is definitely not a very direct question. It's not a very specific question, but there is definitely a lot to cover when it comes to the face. I'm going to go ahead and pull it off just to show you guys a little bit better. Oh well, we dropped it. That's okay. Luckily, it's LEGO. It never really breaks, just falls apart. So we can put that piece back on, and we're smooth sailing. Okay, looking good, looking good. Don't worry about that. So we've got Stan Lee's face here, and what's really the key to bringing a character like Stan Lee, or any other character really, like our friend Bob Ross behind us, to life, is using a variety of pieces in a variety of directions. That's really what it's all about. And you guys can see, if you kind of take a quick look here, I've got pieces going in all sorts of different directions. We got pieces facing downwards, facing sideways, facing outwards, facing upwards. I don't think we have anything facing inwards, but that could have been a possibility as well. You never know how these are going to work out. So to really kind of break down a couple different things and show you some of the different places where we've done that, I think we'll start with the side of the build. So you can see his ears are facing a little bit outward, and he's got some hair details on the side. That's also, we did the brim of his glasses. So all of this is attached to the very side of the build. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull off a couple different pieces here. And you'll see that we actually have some studs on the side here that allow us to build outwards. Another thing I'd love to highlight about this part here, and obviously that helps us with the shaping of the side of his face, his ears, a little bit of the cheeks and stuff like that. It's a really great way to get some curves on the sides. Another cool thing though we have to highlight here is how the sunglasses work. Because what's really, really cool about them is they're mostly built studs up, so they just go into the main build. But we actually have 4 corners here of the sunglasses where we have cheese slopes facing downwards, so in the opposite direction of most of the build. And you might be wondering, well, Nick, how did you do that? And it's a very simple trick that I actually use very often in my builds, which is to lock a piece in without actually having it attached. So we rest pieces kind of tile to tile in certain places, and then just make sure we lock them in with other ones. So I can actually remove this whole section right here, and you can see it's got tiles on what's actually the bottom of it that rest against other tiles here, and it's put in such a way that it's in a pattern so that it doesn't slide back and forth. It can only slide outwards, but luckily, because of all the detailing we put on the side, that locks that all in that way there. So that way we can get the nice rounded edges on his sunglasses. That also happens on the interior of the build there, and that's how that works. We've also got some outward facing details, like we did some plates on his face. One, I like using plates to help give a little bit more of that LEGO look. And 2, of course, it just allows us to add in different shapes. So we kind of added a little bit of the detailing of the way that his cheeks are shaped here. We obviously did his nose facing outwards. You know, some other details like his chin. We even had put a little hole because he had like a very big groove in his forehead. And then the forehead itself actually is another part where we built outwards, and we use curve slopes to do that. So again, there's just some pieces with the studs on the side that allow us to create a little bit of texture and a little bit of curving on his forehead there. So that's really all about the face and how that all came together. Our next question is, how did you build the gauntlet? And that was actually asked by a couple different people, Mogstar, Nicholas. Thank you so much for those questions, guys. The gauntlet for this build I felt was really important to do in gold. So a lot of the times when I know I'm gonna work with something in a particular color, I understand that I'm gonna be limited by what's available in that color. Gold, admittedly, is not something that LEGO makes a ton of different pieces in. So how you're gonna bring something together is actually gonna be limited by the pieces that exist or that you may have available to you, depending on how much LEGO you have. So really for me, it was just about figuring out what gold pieces do I have and how can I put those pieces together to make them resemble the Infinity Gauntlet as closely as possible. I do think the Infinity Gauntlet's, it's kind of a lucky thing in that it has very distinct elements like a curved handle or a curved wrist part, and then it's got the Infinity Stones, of course. So just by plopping those different colors and having a little bit of shaping to this, it's immediately recognizable as the Infinity Gauntlet, even if it maybe isn't as good as it could be if it was done in another color. So again, just like we did with the face, we use a lot of snot pieces, those studs not on top pieces. we start with actually using a little bit of a newer one right on the side and the front here. But you can see we have these tan ones that actually have corner snot pieces. So they have studs on the front and on the side, but nowhere else. So that's great in that they can be side by side, but still allows you to build all around them. So that's how we attached this beautiful gold piece that we have here that does a really good job for the wrist part, as well as some detailing that goes on the side. So we get that all back on there. You can see how that all looks. We put some grills here to help give a little bit of shaping to the flare there. And then on the top part, you can see those tan pieces are in there, allowing us to build on the side and the top. And then actually what we did here was from the front, we used some clips to attach onto this top part here so we could create a rounded part. Those are actually dark gray, so it only really looks good from the front. Again, no gold headlight bricks, which is what these little gray ones are called here. So we made it work with what we had, you know? We went with gray. Luckily though, from most angles, you don't end up seeing that, so it's not a big deal. And then again, making sure that we're grabbing the details that are important, we put all the correct infinity stone colors on there so that it would be immediately recognizable as that. So that's kind of the key to the gauntlet, is just, you know, using the piece you have available and trying to match the shaping of the thing in the best way you possibly can. Another awesome question that we had was from our friend Allison, who asked, where do you find all the unique pieces that you need for builds? So this is a really great question because I have to say I'm very, very lucky. I have a huge Lego collection, and for the most part, I'm generally able to work with what I have to bring my builds to life. I don't very often, you know, need to order pieces, or if I thought I would, I might just try and force myself to get a little bit more creative with what I have on hand so that I don't have to wait to order pieces and put off, you know, finishing a build. But what I would recommend if you're not as lucky as I am to have such a crazy cool collection is build digitally. There are a lot of great programs out there. Two big ones are Lego Digital Designer and BrickinNick's Studio, or stud.io. You can look that up online, or I'll have a link in the description for you. The great thing about those programs is they allow you to practice building digitally, and then you can order the pieces you need once you've decided upon how you want that model to come together. So it can be a good way to ensure that you're not buying too much Lego because you're buying just what you need for the individual builds. And building digitally can still be a great way to get practice at doing building in general. So if you don't have a huge collection, I would definitely recommend work digitally, use whatever pieces you want, and then figure out from there what actually exists and what doesn't, and order what you need to make that build possible in real life. I would love to highlight one other thing as well, in that we used a very similar technique for the glasses on doing the Spider-Man hand upside down. I wanted him to have that Spider-Man hand detail because I knew Stanley was a big fan of Spider-Man, of course, having been the guy who kind of brought him to life. And so you can see this locks in with that little gray piece that we just took off there, and then it just slides in and it rests on some tiles. So again, a really, really simple and easy way to build in different directions while still having the build be locked in. Obviously it moves a little bit side to side, but it's not falling off because it's locked in place with some other pieces. We otherwise just gave him a cool quantum suit look. I even grabbed a sticker from one of the Avengers Lego sets that I had, threw it on a piece there to give him that on his shoulder. And then, you know, we've got his head on there, and it's just a nice little bust, a nice little black platform there to give it a nice clean look as well. And that is kind of our behind the build look for Stanley. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Feel free to let me know in the comments what other kind of stuff you would like to see on the channel. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know as well. And otherwise, guys, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a good one, and happy building.